Hello Year 4, this is your English lesson for Thursday the 4th of February. We've been working really hard to plan our invented stories, so we're coming towards the end of our unit now, and today you're going to be writing your hot task, your final piece of writing for this unit of work. So just to begin, I'd like you to take the opportunity now to check your planning. Over the last few lessons we've been planning our invented story, so look back at your planning. The steps to success are on the notebook here to help you. So have a look. Did you manage to include every feature in the steps to success? Have a look at that. And is there anything else you need to add in now? So perhaps you didn't manage to say what your natural disaster was going to be and you need to add a bit more detail now. Or perhaps you didn't talk about what your character was hearing, so you need to add that in now, okay? So I would suggest you pause the video here, read your planning carefully and add in anything else that you need to add in using the steps to success to help you. Okay, a reminder then, our writing target is to use expanded noun phrases. We've been doing really well with that. You're really understanding what they are now and able to identify them. So it's just a case of making sure we remember to include them in our writing. So you might like to think now of some expanded noun phrases that you could use in your story today. Perhaps you might describe your character with one, or the setting, or the disaster. So again, if you want to add anything into your planning now, you can pause the video and do that. But do make sure you've got some expanded noun phrases in your writing today. So just to warm our brains up, let's start thinking about some spelling words, okay? If we'd been in school this week, we would have been working on words that had the suffix ation, okay? So I would like you to see if you can think of as many words as you can using the suffix ation, and I've put 2 on there just to give you an idea and get your brains working this morning and get you thinking. So I've come up with radiation and dedication. How many other words can you think of using the suffix ation? So if you're with somebody, you could talk about this now, or if you're working on your own, that's okay. You could write some ideas down in your exercise book. I'll give you a few moments to do that, and then I'll share with you some other words that I've come up with using the suffix ation. So just remember, a suffix goes at the end of the word. So in dedication, ation is at the end, and radiation, I've got ation at the end because suffixes go at the end of words. So have a go now. How many words can you think of with ation at the end of the word as a suffix? Okay, I hope you've had a chance to share some words. If you haven't had enough time, don't forget you can pause the video at any point. Let me share with you some other words that we would have been learning in our spellings this week then that use the suffix ation. So we've got dedication, radiation, indication, translation, creation, and demonstration. If you want to practice any of those spellings, you could write those down and then you could test yourself to see if you can remember how to spell them as well, okay? Because that's what we would have been doing in school this week. So let's have a look at our WALT for today. So our WALT is to write an invented story, including rich and varied vocabulary. So this really is our final piece of our unit of work. We've worked so hard on our Escape from Pompeii text. We've learned the text, we've imitated the text, and now we are creating our own story similar to Escape from Pompeii, but hopefully with a different natural disaster, different characters, and a different setting. So let's think about natural disasters. What natural disaster did you include in your planning? So I've got some images here to help you. So perhaps you decided your story is going to be about a flood. Perhaps it's going to be about an earthquake, or it could be a tsunami, which is a big wave that comes over the land. Or perhaps it's a tornado or some sort of storm, or even some sort of forest fire or something like that, okay? So do be creative in what natural disaster you've picked. But let's think, how are you going to describe the natural disaster? So take a moment to have a chat with the people you're with, or if you're on your own, just think to yourself and use the images to help you. How will you describe the natural disaster scene? Okay, if we think back to our Escape from Pompeii text, that will really help us with this. So the natural disaster in our Escape from Pompeii text was a volcano eruption, wasn't it? A volcanic eruption. So we heard the different aspects of what a volcanic eruption would be like. So we had soot and ash, we had things falling from the sky, we had the buildings being covered with that ash, and a real sense of fear and dread in our characters, didn't we? Okay, so think how you can magpie ideas from that to describe your natural disaster. So for example, if it's a flood, you're not going to have thick ash or soot, are you? But you will have water starting to come onto the land, perhaps surrounding your character, perhaps getting into the buildings. What about earthquakes? An earthquake, you're going to have rumbling in the ground, aren't you? You could use some really nice onomatopoeias for an earthquake. So you're going to have rumbling, you might have the ground cracking or splitting, you might have buildings falling down. So try and add that tension and using your description to really show how scary these events can be for the people that experience them. Okay, let's have a look back at our planning then. You've worked really hard on your planning sheets and those will really help you today. Okay, you need to use them. That's where all of your hard work is done really. You've got all of your ideas down, you've got your opening, your build up, your problem, your resolution, hopefully some ideas in there, and your ending. So use your planning. You don't need to think up new ideas today. You are using the ideas that you put on your planning sheet and now you're putting them into sentences, trying to show all of those skills that we've discussed. Okay, so you can see in my opening, I've got Claudia. She's creative, she's wearing black jeans and a pink jumper. She's in Cheltenham, so that's where my setting for my scene is going to be. She's playing with her pet, so I need to put her dog into my introduction. Those are the bits that I'm going to have in the start of my story, okay? So use what you've got to help you, okay? You'll notice again, like in our Escape from Pompeii text, there are 5 sections in our planning, so we are aiming for 5 paragraphs. I know that seems like a lot to write, so get as much done as you can today. If you don't quite finish it or you're running out of energy today, then you can always carry it over and finish tomorrow, okay, when we'll be publishing our work. So try and write as much of the story as you can today, but if you do need to carry some over, that's okay. Just don't leave yourself too much to do tomorrow. So you might like to share your ideas now. If you're in school with our key worker group, this would be a great time to pause the video. You can have a chat with the rest of the children there. What is happening at the start of your story, what's happening in the middle, and what's happening at the end. If you're at home and you're able to talk to somebody, share that now. If you're not able to talk to anyone, that's okay. Just have a look back at your planning and just remind yourself, how are you starting your story, what happens in the middle, and how are you going to end your story. Okay, so let's look back at our steps to success for today. These are the things we want to see in your writing, okay? So our role is to write an inventive story, including rich and varied vocabulary. So you need to be really careful with your vocabulary choices today and try to make them the best that you can possibly do, okay? So we need to see a clear plot in your story. So use your planning sheet for that because that will really help you with your plot. Your paragraphs, again, your planning sheet will help because you've got 5 sections there, so you should have at least 5 paragraphs. We would like third person, so you're going to be using a character's name and using he or she to talk about your character. You're going to have powerful verbs, so think back to some of the examples we had in the Pompeii text of looming and glistening, things like that, okay? So use some powerful verbs. Some expanded noun phrases, so we've already discussed that. You might be describing your character, your setting, or the natural disaster with some expanded noun phrases. Fronted adverbials we've done lots of work on, so try to start your sentences in different ways. Sometimes we get caught in a trap of always putting the or they at the start of a sentence. Really try to think, when you start a new sentence, how can I make this really interesting for my reader? So try to use fronted adverbials. And then adverbs of manner. So just remember, adverbs describe verbs. So if you're saying that something glistened, maybe how did that glisten? So glistened brightly, or glistened pleasantly, or glistened amazingly, something like that. So an adverb to describe how something happened. Adverbs describe the verb. Let's have a look then at my example. So this is how I'd like you to set your story out today. And you'll notice I've got these 2 things next to me, okay? So your planning you've already got from work that we've done. So look back in your exercise book to use that. And this steps to success sheet is on the daily plan for you today, so you can use that. So have those things next to you when you're writing, because that's what you need to use to help you write your story today. So I've put my date, I've put my Walt, and then I've come up with a title for my story. And my story is going to be called The Day the Earth Shook, because I'm having an earthquake happening in my story. I'm going to read what I've written to you now. There are things that I can improve. I know I haven't yet put in about Claudia's dog, so I need to do that. But what I've tried to do is use the Escape from Pompeii text to help me. So I thought about how the Escape from Pompeii text started. And if you remember, it started with on a hillside overlooking the sparkling bay of Naples. So I've tried to use that to help me think about how I can start my writing. So do use what you've got, but obviously you've got to change the ideas. So I'll read you my first 2 paragraphs. I've got, in the heart of the Cotswolds, the beautiful town of Cheltenham was buzzing with life. So I've got a powerful verb there, haven't I? Buzzing. Across the lush green grass of Montpellier Gardens, I've got an expanded noun phrase there, the lush green grass of Montpellier Gardens, Claudia strolled along. Oh, I typed that wrong. Always check for spelling mistakes. Claudia strolled along happily, thinking to herself, could anywhere be more tranquil than here? Tranquil means peaceful, if you're not sure. She wandered contentedly. Unexpectedly, the peace began to fall apart as something began to happen. So my new paragraph is, the sky began to darken. All of a sudden, a huge, deep crack ripped through the hard grey stone of the pavement. Claudia couldn't believe it. She stood rooted to the spot. So I've got my introduction here. I did say I haven't managed to include the dog yet, so I do need to go back and add in something about her dog, and then I've gone on to my build-up, okay? I might just add in Claudia and her tiny white terrier strolled along happily. There we are. So always go back, look at your planning, make sure you've included everything that you plan to include, okay? You can see the length of my paragraphs, they're quite long, so do make sure you get as much in as you can and try to include those features as you write. Let's just check how I've done with my features. So is my plot clear? I think it is so far. I've started to introduce. I think maybe I could do a bit more build up because I didn't talk about these children laughing. So I might actually go back and add a bit more build up. I've got paragraph, I've split it into paragraph. I've got third person, haven't I? Because I've talked about Claudia and her tiny white terrier. Powerful verbs, I had buzzing, didn't I? What else have I got? Unexpectedly. Oh, that's more of an adverb, isn't it? That's my adverb of manner there, actually. What other verbs have I got? Darken is nice, isn't it? The sky began to darken. And a crack. So some powerful verbs, perhaps I could do a few more. Expanded noun phrases, I think I've done quite well with that. I've had the beautiful town of Cheltenham. I had the lush green grass of Montpellier Gardens, her tiny white terrier. And then down here I had a few, didn't I? I had a huge deep crack ripped through the hard grey stone of the pavement. So quite a few expanded noun phrases there. Fronted adverbials, let's have a look. Yeah, I've started in the heart of the Cotswolds, that's a fronted adverbial. Across the lush green grass of Montpellier Gardens, that's another one. So you'll see each time I start a sentence, I try to think of a fronted adverbial that I can use to make the start of my sentence really interesting for my reader. And then finally, adverbs of manner. I picked one out a minute ago, didn't I? Oh, I had unexpectedly, so how that happened. I've got Claudia strolling happily. And I've got her wandering contentedly, so thinking to herself contentedly. So I have got some nice adverbs of manner there too. Okay, so I hope my story starter has helped you to think of ideas for yours. If you'd like to, you could pause on this page now so that you can use that to help you with your writing. And if you're in school with Mrs. Chamberlain, she can pause it on this slide of the notebook so you can see how to set out your writing, and feel free to magpie ideas from my writing, but do put your own ideas in, okay? You might have a different character name, different natural disaster, and maybe even a different setting. So put your own ideas in, but you can use that to help you get started today. When you've finished then, I would like you to check and edit your story. So we always try to go back, don't we? Even if you don't finish your whole story today, I would still like you to edit what you've done and check what you've done. So the things you need to look for: have you used correct grammar? Is your spelling okay? Have you remembered your capital letters? Is your punctuation okay? Have you got your full stops, your commas, particularly for the fronted adverbials? And what about your vocabulary? Are there any words that you could improve? Could you do better? Okay, I'll keep this video short so you've got plenty of time to write today. So when you have finished your writing, leave a learning pit for me after you've done your editing, just to let me know how you get on. And tomorrow we'll be looking at publishing our work, okay? So I'll leave the video on this page. You can use that to help you and use your planning and steps to success to make sure you include everything that you've already worked on in your writing today. Okay, good luck with your hot task. We've worked so hard this unit of work. We're really looking forward to reading these stories. So do share them with us later, and we'll look forward to seeing what you've done.